It's News from Heaven. Thank you everybody for joining. Today we want to look at how to untangle the mind. We've got a fascinating division that we can put on the different stuff. I don't know if you've ever had to have a mind for a while, but it can be a relatively confusing place. We can be in there and you get all these things pushing you from all these different directions. You have concerns for how things might go. You have fears about how other things have gone. You have conflicting, some things seem to be pulling you up in a positive direction. Some things seem to be pulling you back. And it just leads to this jumble. And how do you sort it all out? That's what we're here to do today. And we're going to do it by looking at heavenly freedom versus hellish freedom. How could you have two kinds of freedom in the first place? Who does Swedenborg think he is? Oh yeah, by the way, we're reading Swedenborg to figure out life in the mind. That's what this show is. Like and subscribe. Click the bell if you want to know when the next episode is coming out. And today we're going to be looking at Divine Providence 43 to 45. So download that from the link in the description. And we're going to start, and I hope eventually in this number we get to talking about heavenly and hellish freedom, because I've set it up that way. It's not going to appear for a little while, so just bear with me for a minute. There is hellish freedom and there is heavenly freedom. Bam! There is hellish freedom and there is heavenly freedom. Okay. Before we even get into it, because I know we're going to get some characteristics of this. Two kinds of freedom. One of them heavenly, and we're going to have to sort this stuff out, and the other one hellish. I thought freedom was just like being able to move places, being able to do things. How could you have both of these? What are they composed of? Our ability to think and intend what is evil, and to say and do it to the extent that civil and moral laws do not restrain us, comes from hellish freedom. You know what I really think about? I can't say. Just kidding. That would be hellish freedom. If there is like, I want to be all negative, but yet there's some kind of reputation thing that's keeping me in check, or there's some kind of laws that keep me in check. Hellish freedom is like what you do when those things aren't holding you back. Our ability to think and intend what is good, and to say and do it when circumstances permit, comes from heavenly freedom. So here we have, I want to not sleep on the fact that we're talking about the ability, freedom giving the ability to do these things. Both of these happen in the context of our ability to go after what's good or what's evil and false, and I'm assuming that means good and true here too as well. So freedom as an ability to do what's good and true and what's evil and false when circumstances, don't forget circumstances are in there, circumstances, those things prevent, but freedom is sort of the thing pushing out, allowing this to happen when there's not external limitations on it. Whatever we think, intend, and say, and sit down for this next one, and do freely is truly ours, because all the freedom we have comes from our love. What does that mean? What could that possibly be implying? What we do freely is ours, becomes ours, because all the freedom we have comes from our love. Freedom and love, and I would say Swedenborg's definition of freedom is actually loving to do something. That is freedom. If you think about it, what makes freedom free? If you're in a room and you want to go outside it, but you can't, you don't feel like you're free. But if you're not allowed to go inside that same room, then you don't feel free in the other direction. Freedom is getting to do what you want. There's many things, like I can't turn into a plant, and I can't something else hilarious and ridiculous, but I don't really feel like that's an impingement on my freedom, because I don't really want to do that stuff. Being a plant is a really slow-paced lifestyle. It's really when you have something, you think about if you're walking your dog and they want to go somewhere and you're like, oh no, you can't chase that kid. That's the tug of the harness is like, this is the pull against freedom. And this is the clue here as to how we can have these two kinds of freedom, comes from our love. And hopefully we're able to start sorting things out, because it just seems like, as I drew before so eloquently, it's just chaos when you get into the things of the mind. But what Swedenborg is starting to paint a picture here, that all these negative things, everything hellish, ego, fear, worry, rejection of goodness and truth, all that actually is held together. And if we consolidate it kind of ties in with everything negative and false in our minds and tries to persuade us from behind that life is a certain way. But then you have everything that's good and true. Because I don't know if you've ever had this feeling that, sometimes you have conflicting impulses, or sometimes you feel like you have different moods or character traits that pull you in different moral or ethical directions. This is the conglomerate of everything good pulling us in this direction. So somehow this is having to do with these two kinds of freedom. This means that if we are caught up in loving what is evil, no offense, but sometimes we do, we cannot help feeling that hellish freedom is freedom itself. So if we have, it's all about what the heart is. The heart brings you back. I ain't telling you no lies. The heart sets the tone. So whatever we love, these things are both presenting themselves as options, but if we love what's evil, then to be led by those things when they come in and suggest things to us feels like this is great, this is freedom, this is the way I want to go because all this stuff interfaces with what I love. However, if it's the reverse and we love what's good and that's pulling us, then it feels like, no, this is freedom. I get to go this way, and to go backwards is like the dog leash is pulling me in the other direction. This means if we are freedom itself, oh, sorry, I stopped at a semicolon. While if we are caught up in loving what is good, we feel that heavenly freedom is freedom itself. I mean, a semicolon is like a period and a comma. Shouldn't it be a longer pause? As a result, each freedom regards the other as slavery. As we were saying, there are two ruling mindsets. And I would say we toggle between these, where there's times when to follow your spiritual pursuit. I don't know about you, but there's times when I'm digging into, I admit it, Swedenborg stuff, and I'm feeling like these principles, these concepts, this is exactly what I want to do in my life. I see the benefits from this. I see the effect this has on my life. This is all I want to, I can't believe that I have a whole day just to try to improve on this stuff. This stuff is awesome. And then there are other times when it's very much, I don't want to do anything that has a positive effort to it. I want to sink into all kinds of, just scroll through my phone, just be lazy, entertain negative thoughts of all kinds, and just don't want to push back against anything. Do I have this sort of switch between the heavenly freedom and the hellish freedom? I'm still not totally clear on what the whole freedom thing is. Let's see if we can get any more illumination. As a result, each freedom regards the other as slavery. No one, though, can deny that one or the other must be real freedom. We've had these as roughly equivalent, but they can't be. Two kinds of freedom that are opposite to each other cannot both be true freedoms. Further, and which one is true, good or evil? I doubt Swedenborg is going to come down hard on the side. I think he's going to just say, follow the freedom that feels true to you. I'm kidding. Further, we cannot deny that being led by what is good is freedom, and being led by what is evil is slavery. Since being led by what is good is being led by the Lord, and being led by what is evil is being led by the devil. So, just to fill this picture out a little bit, at the root of this freedom, you got a little guy named the Lord, creator and sustainer of everything, source of all goodness and truth. And here you have the devil, which Swedenborg says that when he's using the term the devil, he's talking about the love of evil personified. So it's not necessarily an opposing being of equal power to the Lord, but rather the worst tendencies in us when we give them life. So already it's starting to see that maybe these two are not equivalent and not good, equal opportunity life investments. Just to add to that a bit, this whole mess, this whole conglomerate here, the negative thoughts and feelings, the devil, all that, this is spiritual slavery. Swedenborg is asserting, we can pick through it for ourselves, and that this is actual freedom. Now, these words have meaning: freedom, slavery. So you can't just assign them to something without characteristics that back that up. And I'll see if Swedenborg has anything more to say about it. If he doesn't, I'll give you my best shot at it. how do you come away labeling those things as he labels them? Now, since anything we do freely seems to be our own, oh my gosh, we're okay. Your sponge mind is ready, right? There's more important pieces to this puzzle coming in right now. Sometimes I just can't handle how fast he's hitting us with these intense concepts. Now, since anything we do freely seems to be our own, this is a whole tentpole. Because it comes from our love. Acting from our love is acting freely, as already noted. It follows that union with the Lord makes us feel that we have freedom and therefore identity. And the closer our union with the Lord, the greater our freedom and our identity. Oh, that's hard to have a sentence that long. I really wanted to stop. In the middle of it, we're starting to fill in our puzzle here. So this is crucial. It seems to be our own. So both of these freedoms, as you're looking here, we're both saying they have these components outside us, and they're both presenting, but you just experience them as, your little headspace. And these are compulsions in a certain direction. These are thoughts and feelings in a certain direction. But whatever we act on, and whichever one of these we grab onto, whichever wolf we feed, as the story goes, whichever we grab onto and act on, then it really becomes our own. It becomes a part of us. So both of these camps are vying to become us. And we are choosing which composes our spirit. And fascinating that Swedenborg asserts that the more we associate with the Lord, you'd think it can't actually be freedom to do everything that God tells you to do. God is saying, don't do this thing that's actually really fun. Okay, fine, I won't do this thing. God is saying you have to, put up with life even though life is obnoxious. All the things that you hear from your various spiritual sources about God. And you got to do exactly what God is telling you. How is that freedom? And can you possibly maintain a you? And if the goal is unite more and more with the Lord, but he's saying that the more we unite with the Lord, the more we have a sense of identity. And that actually, in the opposite direction, the more we let this evil and falsity take us over, the more we are just a slave to the things that come through. Have you ever had to interact with something in your mind that wanted to set the tone that you didn't want? And have you ever struggled against something negative and dark where you're saying, I don't really want to think that. I don't really want to feel that. I want to change. I don't want to keep affecting my relationships like this. But you can't. But it's a fight to do that. It's not really you in control. This is the pull of these desires. And even Swedenborg says, when you get to, let's say you go along with everything antisocial or whatever whims or urges pop up in you, even if you, all right, I'm latching onto that, I'm making it my lifestyle, even then you're completely at the mercy of those whims, that they take you wherever they want to. It's never this actual freedom that Swedenborg says you do get. That somehow the connection to the Lord, when you go deeper down that path, because right now it seems like they're kind of equivalent, but the deeper we go along in this direction, we actually get more breathing room, whereas the deeper we go this way, it actually gets more and more claustrophobic and controlling. The reason our identity seems clearer, how could it be more clear as you move in with the Lord, is that divine love, by its very nature, wants to give what it has to others, which means to us on earth and to angels. And what it has is a sense of identity. What it has is autonomous being, and it wants us to be as free and source of agency as God wants to give us the same feeling that God has, who is the source of that stuff. All spiritual love is like this, divine love most of all. Further, the Lord never forces anyone, because anything we're forced to do does not seem to be ours. This is the flip side of that big statement before. And anything that does not seem to be ours cannot become part of our love and so be accepted as our own. This is why the Lord is always leading us in freedom and reforming and regenerating us in freedom. This situation we find ourselves in, it's just full of marker and highlighter, and it seems like it's chaos. This is life. This is what we experience on a day-to-day basis. And you've probably heard, it's important that we have free will, but it's kind of obnoxious because that means you have to go through all these difficult things that we go through. This is the set of conditions that allows us to Really, the whole thing you could erase. You can get rid of all this stuff. The whole point of it all is just that our heart is able to select. I got a little overzealous there. This is a complex environment that allows us to freely gravitate towards one of these two. And when we do gravitate, actually incorporate this within ourselves and let the plan behind it come to fruition. The Lord's plan, which as we just saw is the nature of spiritual love, which is to give us freedom and give us a life like God. How am I symbolizing that? This is where we'll end up. We have the same kind of freedom and love and joy and peace that God has, whereas this one is trying to pull us down into the same kind of mindless, waste of time, limited, really pathetic world that if you really took a lot of your deepest ego concerns and wrote them out, the character they portray, it's not a good look. This is trying to basically squander our potential, whereas this is trying to take us up and up and up. That's the whole game, getting regenerated in freedom. And it's through these two sets of love. So I don't know if I clearly articulated the nature of that freedom, but that we have, it seems like you've got one thinking machine and one feeling machine, and you can think thoughts across the scale of good versus bad, however you want to label that. Same thing with motivations. Swedenborg is saying there's actually two networks you can tune into. One is that it's two different sources there. That it's about the motivation. Why are you it doesn't matter if the thoughts are all perfect, but why are we choosing these thoughts versus these ones? We can be toggling between sourcing our conceptions and actions from these two very different things. There will be more on this later. You may refer to number 4 above, and you certainly can. Don't let me slow you down. Go explore the text, learn what it actually means, and come back and tell me, because I obviously don't know. And this paragraph, even though it's going on and on about freedom, this paragraph here, 44, is the reason that I wanted to do this as news from heaven. So let's see. And I got a feeling that this is going to be one of these things that's, oh, isn't that cool? Crickets. But we'll see if I can sell it. The reason we are more clearly aware that we belong to the Lord as our sense of identity becomes clearer. Doesn't that seem like it's a paradox? Sense of identity, we feel more like ourselves, but at the same time that we belong to somebody else, is that the more closely we are united to the Lord, the wiser we become. And wisdom both teaches this and is conscious of it. So it's true that we can be ourselves in proximity to God, that we were actually meant for this partnership. And the more you see how things actually are, the more you realize that that's true. Because angels of the third heaven are the wisest of angels. They even sense it and actually call it freedom itself. So once you get all the way down the chain here, where you've accepted, where these clouds have passed away, all of the allure of the negative side of life is out of there, right? The clouds are there, but they're very much dormant, and you're moving down this heavenly freedom chain. As we get there, you just feel like this is freedom itself. This is all I would want to do. And to go back to these clouds, even if you got everything the clouds were wanting, I don't want to be under the control of that stuff. Something about this is real freedom enough that you feel like, no, that's the game I want to play. The reason they refer to being led by themselves, though, as slavery. And this, I shouldn't have black parentheses, though, thing. This is the real thing, along with what comes on the next page. That struck me as a novel idea. Somehow I never came across it before in the Swedenborg thing. The reason they say is that the Lord does not flow directly into the things that their wisdom enables them to sense and think, but into the desires of their love for what is good, through these desires into the effects of their wisdom. What? Could we be time to draw an angel's head? Yeah, okay. Why, big nose angel. Wait, some of them have big nose? All right, so this is the mind, okay? And down here you have the angel heart. Man, wouldn't it be great to be an angel and look this good? So God, who's around, you know God's around, and there's not just God gives you everything, even perceptibly. I can already tell this is going to be a tough sell. This is going to be a tough crowd. God is moving into the heart, and then the heart moves into the mind. Oh, this thing is freaking out. It's like, why are you trying to draw across the page line? Who are you? What are you using? Are you using this program for some weird religious show? Stop. So, this is the setup. They sense the flow into the desire that prompts their wisdom. Then everything they think because of their wisdom feels as though it is coming from themselves and is therefore their own. This is what makes the union mutual. So it's almost like God is saying, hey, I'm going to set the broad agenda here. And the angels feel perceptibly like, all right, I can tell God is moving me in this direction. And here's some ideas that I have around that. And the reason it matters to me is that you feel that sometimes in your life, where you can just tell on a project you're working on or in a state of life, like things are moving in this direction. And it is this emotive, sort of like the whole tectonic plate that you're on is shifting. And you start to get these ideas of how you can help that and its details. And it's a very, very good feeling. You've probably had something like it in your life. And can you imagine to get that sense of this is God, who, by the way, God is not, this is some abrasive external personality. This is the ultimate life hack for you. This is the thing that is trying to get you to prosper and have joy and reach your potential in all these amazing ways, plug you into the greatest possible life experience. To know, just imagine if you had the best possible life coach or executive coach that was getting it so you knew you'd make every perfect move. When they say, invest in this, you're excited because you know the returns you're going to get. So you get that feeling of, let's go this way. And then you're thinking, okay, how can I participate? How can I do it? To me, that seems like a phenomenal life and much better than I woke up today and what am I anxious about and what kind of future thing am I a little bit nervous about, and I would much rather be this funny looking angel across the page margin. Thank you. 45 I just want to fly through. It's not really related, but it just happens to be. I said God is this life coach that is going to hook you up with everything good. This is the kind of stuff when you feel that movement inside you. This is what that's trying to do, right? Since the goal of the Lord's divine providence is a heaven from the human race, it follows that the goal is the union of the human race with the Lord. It also follows that the goal is that we should be more closely united to Him, which is that freedom, and thereby be granted a more inward heaven, which is peace and happiness and joy and innocence. It also follows that the goal is for us to become wiser and happier. That's not so bad. And because of this union, because we are given heaven through our wisdom and in proportion to it, this is what gives us happiness. It gives you the right way to look at life, which streams as happiness. And lastly, it follows that the goal is for us to have a clearer sense of our identity and yet be more clearly aware that we belong to the Lord. All of these are part of the Lord's divine providence because all of them are heaven, which is the goal. That's something you can trust. That's freedom. Anything, the fishing line, the rope that's going to lead you when you pull it to that is worth following. The other stuff, the hellish freedom, it's going to lead you to, it's not going to be as good today as yesterday. You're going to get more crumbled in and crunched up and wasted. But this side, heaven, wisdom, happiness, clear sense of identity, plugged in, that's it. That's the freedom that I want to go for. And that's the news from heaven. How'd it go? Did it work for you? Let me know. Like and subscribe. Click the bell. In the comments, hey, have you been following that freedom? What's the time that it worked? What's the time in your history, your past, where you've felt like you've had that, you feel God moving and you feel the ideas coming in? Any of that, I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you for spending this time with me, and thanks for humoring me. This is stuff that mattered to me. Hopefully it matters to you. Hopefully you actually perceive it in a deeper way than I do. Come back, educate me in the comments, and I hope you take it out into the week, and the week is good. See you soon.